Praise the Lord, everyone. Brother Roop here. Let's continue on with the book of Acts. We are in Acts chapter 18, verse 3. Acts chapter 18, verse 3. My subscriber, thank you very much. I'm honored and privileged. If you like these short videos, 5 to 10 minutes long, go ahead and subscribe and ring the bell. So we are in our journey of Acts. Verse 3, it says, "And because he was of the same craft, he abode with them and wrought, for by their occupation they were tent makers." So Paul had to leave Athens very, very quickly, and he went to the city of Corinth, where he met Aquila and Priscilla. Aquila and Priscilla had to leave Rome because the Christians were expelled from Rome, and they met Paul, the Apostle Paul, in Corinth. Now Luke, who's writing this history, records that Aquila and Priscilla, even though they were from Rome, when they met Paul, they were on equal status theologically, meaning Apostle Paul did not have to teach them or get them up to speed or rebaptize them. Their doctrine was correct. So this tells us that the Christian church in Rome was experiencing good teaching, good leadership. So they did get expelled from Rome, went to Corinth and met Paul, and they made a great team there. They said they were from the same craft, meaning same occupation, and they wrought it together. That's King James word for they worked. They worked together in the same craft. Wrought just means work. So now the New Testament was originally written in Aramaic. Jesus and the disciples were Aramaic speakers. All the apostles were Aramaic speakers. They wrote in Aramaic. They preached in Aramaic because so was the language of the common people. And if you're going to preach, you're going to preach to the common people. And so the first writings of the gospel was in Aramaic. And then it was translated into Greek and then later to English for us. So the more you have translations leaving the original language, the more information is cut out. Now in Aramaic, the Aramaic scholars say that Paul was not a tent maker like it's recorded in the Greek. In Aramaic, they say he was a saddle maker. Now, Priscilla and Aquila were also of the same trade, they said. And even though there was a very, very big need for tents, and tent makers were common back then, it was a common trade. They probably were not tent makers in Rome. Not a lot. Rome was a big metropolitan city. Not a lot of people lived in tents there, but they did have a big need for saddle makers. So that would kind of prove that they were saddle makers instead of tent makers. Now, Apostle Paul came from Tarsus. It was an important university city, had the third largest university in Rome, but it also was the center for goatskin. And so Paul probably specialized using goatskin to make either saddles or tents. Maybe he did both. Both were made out of leather, so it's possible he could have worked with both. The scholars already said that was not the case, but it seems logical. So they probably worked on saddles or tents. depending on what region they were in and what was needed in the area. So they were tent makers, they were preachers, but they didn't live off the gospel. They worked with their hands, worked with their trade. They supported themselves. They didn't rely on their followers to support them. They didn't rely on a church to support them. They made their own money in life so that they can give themselves. Give to the church, give to poor people. That's something we don't do today. Today, a lot of people want to become a church pastor just to be supported. And that wasn't the case back then. Yeah, I know they didn't have large churches back then, but they had large enough churches where people could be supported if they wanted to. But Paul said, he said it's okay if a church supports a pastor, but as for myself, I will not burden the people. And so I think it's great that these apostles had a trade, that was handed down probably by their fathers, and they used this trade to support themselves. No matter where they were banished to or from, they can always support themselves. And I think that's admirable. And so, not only that, but Paul and Aquila and Priscilla, not only did they share the gospel and share correct doctrine, but they also shared an occupation. And so that's why they became fast friends and a great partnership in ministry. Thank you, and God bless you.